stories of neurodivergence, yet you can't find the ones that speak to your life. Utopia, the campaign, aims to platform the voices of neurodivergence across different communities and life circumstances, so we find the words to get the support we need. Join me, Samantha Hugh, Director of ADHD Girls, as I uncover hidden stories of neurodivergence that come from a few, but speak to so many parts of our lives. Hello, hi, thanks for joining us today for our LinkedIn Live for the Utopia campaign. I have Ruth-Ellen today with me and really happy to have you on the show. Thank you so much for joining me.
It's great to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Ruth, well, do you prefer to be called Ruth-Ellen or anything else?
If you can manage Ruth-Ellen, I know it's a bit of a mouthful, but yeah.
No, it's completely fine. So Ruth-Ellen, can you tell me a bit about yourself, what you do?
Yeah, sure. So I work for Exceptional Individuals. We support individuals who are neurodivergent in the workplace to build a neuro-inclusive world, helping employers to really understand that awareness, acceptance and advancements piece so that more people can really embrace the strengths of neurodiversity in the workplace and embrace neurodivergent colleagues as much as possible. Mm-hmm. I also am a member of the Cultural Perspective Committee for the British Dyslexia Association. I do some of the training there. We do some stuff around anti-racism work and dyslexia and intersectionality there. And then I also have on the side my own organisation that talks about intersectional inclusion, and I've created a roadmap to help with that piece as well.
Mm-hmm. Well, it sounds like you're certainly doing a lot, and I know that you've been on this journey for a while, being diagnosed, and having realized after your son's autism diagnosis that you're in fact neurodivergent yourself in 2012. And so today, I really want to talk to you about the topic of raising a child on the autism spectrum as a neurodivergent woman. And so in your bio that you sent me, you said that you discovered your son was actually autistic in 2009. And subsequently, you also realized that you are autistic, dyslexic, ADHDer, and dyspraxic. So there's so much to unpack here.
Yeah.
What do you think led your son to being diagnosed with ASC? And how do you support him through all this?
I think it's an interesting one because early on, obviously this was my first child, so I had no idea what I should be looking out for. And I grew up predominantly raising him by myself, so it wasn't as if I was like there was a benchmark of this wasn't what other people experienced. So there was a delay in speech, and we kind of like pushed for some help, and he got some speech and language therapy early on, but he didn't get the diagnosis at that time, and that was at the age of 3 or 4. And then it took us up to all the way till he got to about 11 to get an actual diagnosis, and it was speech and language delay, ADHD, and learning disabilities as well. And it took a while to get to the diagnosis, and it was only because a teacher helped to push for it. If we didn't get that nudge, we wouldn't probably have got the diagnosis, to be fair.
Mm-hmm. And what kind of challenges was he going through in school, that the teacher helped to actually push for the diagnosis as well?
It was a combination of not necessarily asking for help, being very reserved. The general doesn't really look at me in the eye when he's speaking to me, and being slightly behind in terms of his peers, and that kind of flagged up a few things as well. And I think there was a time when I was like, well, the maths hasn't changed in terms of his own development, and there was all a bit like, oh no, it's fine, I'm sure he'll catch up. And was checking like year after year, and nothing was developing in that area, and they didn't necessarily do anything about it. So I guess it was just that constant, and many parents are going to be able to identify this, like badgering to an extent and having to be on them until they did something. But it was definitely around the the development milestones that were the challenges, and understanding actually that should be further along.
Right. And I think you mentioned also that they thought that there was some level of learning disability involved. Can you explain like what they mean by that? Were they referring to like his like school performance?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, academic performance, and I guess some of the social interaction milestones as well. But definitely, academia was one of the factors of that, not being at the same level as these peers in certain areas. Really great at, I guess, something that interests him, which is art, and he's an amazing artist. And he's doing animation at university at the moment. But just generally at the time, it was more so not being at the same level of the benchmark that everyone else was.
Right. And then after getting his autism diagnosis, did that help at all, like in terms of his school life?
To be fair, I guess the support is dependent on the borough and dependent on many factors. One of the challenges that we came across was just because we got the diagnosis doesn't mean we got the help. There was that excuse of, we haven't got the budget, and we might be able to get a scriber here and there, but there was a remark from the special education needs coordinator that he'll never be a public speaker, but he'll just be okay. And it was those types of comments that we heard quite a lot, like putting those labels and boxes on his development, but not necessarily then giving support. So like he would go to like be in social circles, which was initiatives for other children that were also on the spectrum. And it was like, oh, well, he didn't speak, so we can't help him. He didn't speak in that circle. And it was very much like not very catered. It was, I guess, it's supposed to be one size fits all. If he doesn't speak in this circle, we can't force him to. So obviously there's nothing we can do to help. And that was some of the conversations that we was kind of coming across time and time again.
That's such a shame, isn't it? Because like you said, there is definitely a disparity in the support that's available from area to area, and in that case, they could have suggested speech and language therapy, right? They could have suggested, maybe doing activities that he loved, and eventually bring him out of his shell, maybe because people are already saying those things, makes him less want to try, right? And that is not helpful at all, and I'm like, has it impacted him in any way, or did it change anything?
So we just recognized that in school it just wasn't going to be a conducive environment. It was in the mainstream, but then what could be looked at? What could we do that's going to be helpful? What could I do that's going to be helpful outside of school? So I enrolled him into things like mixed martial arts, drama, sort of communities that he could then express himself in different ways, and just really try to figure out what was going to be helpful for him to build confidence in different areas, not just like mainstream school, because that wasn't really an option in terms of them looking at creative ways to help, like you said. So yeah, he enjoyed martial arts because I thought he needs to be able to defend himself, and also work in different teams. And the whole drama class was pretty good as well for cultivating his own way of communicating with others, and he enjoyed that as well. And he even did like Princess Trust stuff as well, which helped. So there was just like, what extracurricular activities are available, what can we do, and just tapping into that.
That's really interesting. I think that's one of the few things I do now as well, knowing that when you are different, and if the level of understanding around you hasn't really reached the same level, you kind of need to equip your own child with, any level of protection, and also, do more as a parent. And that's what you did. And on the safety aspect, we know that being autistic and neurodivergent, children can find it difficult to fit into friendship groups. And if you're different already, you can be singled out as different. Has that been an issue at all in terms of safety, or bullying, in school?
Well, yeah, there was incidents that I remember where I wanted to be mama bear and really rescue my son, because I would hear incidents like I'm not sitting next to that R word, and people just being really horrible, the way that they would describe and interact with him at school. But then there was those odd occasions when, like outside of school, he would be seeing somebody maybe years later, and it was maybe at college or something. He would be able to then, people that he knew in school, they would be saying, some of them would say hello. So perhaps there was a mixed group, but the ones that I would get called into school for were about those types of incidents where he did feel quite isolated, and those remarks were not necessarily even addressed properly. Like, that person didn't get suspended. It was almost like, oh, kids will be kids type thing.
And that was quite young as well, wasn't it? It was like,
yeah, so like he would have been like 11, 12, 13 type.
Yeah. I mean, like, kids in this country 11 and 12, and they're already acting like teenagers, right? I mean, I grew up in Malaysia, and 11 and 12 still very innocent for me, because we were still in primary school. But that's kind of different here because people are going into secondary school at that age. And so parenting, as a neurodivergent, it comes with its own challenges. And I want to talk to you about this. And you mentioned that you raised him and your other child as well as a single parent. Has that been like really, hard for you in terms of trying to navigate the challenges that maybe your child is going through, but also you are going through at the same time? How do you help yourself, help him?
Yeah, I guess I didn't really recognize my own neurodivergence until later on. Then you kind of put your own neurodivergence to the back burner to ensure that your child is kind of taken care of to an extent. So I think from my experience, it, like, seeing some of the challenges that he had, I was kind of being able to relive my childhood to an extent of some of the challenges that I had when I was younger. And I guess the challenge as an adult raising another child who is neurodivergent is not necessarily knowing how to even sometimes adult yourself, and finding that part challenging, and knowing that it takes quite a toll just on your mental well-being if you're not careful as well, because you're almost like trying to make sure that they're so good, and you don't. I've heard lots of parents talk about they're like not even the second, maybe the third person on the list, right? So yeah, it can have its challenges because you're not quite sure what's yours and what's theirs because of that unprocessed stuff as well that comes up. And also just understanding that actually you brought this person into this world and you want them to have the best life, and there's also almost some sort form of guilt around that as well, because the world isn't ready for them.
That's right. And was there anything that you would, tell your kids, to make them feel like stronger about navigating this world? That's obviously, they feel like they're different from it.
Yeah, I guess the thing that kind of came up was more so around what their strengths are, what they know more about themselves, because oftentimes the world will tell you who you are rather than you understanding who you are and being able to tell the world, actually, this is who I am. So I think it's just really important to recognize that some of the stuff that people project, and this is what I try to tell them as well, that whatever another person's projecting, it's probably from a wounded place, and it's nothing to do with you. It's more to do with them. And I think that's probably generally the easiest way to explain it, more than anything.
No, you're completely right. That's extremely wise, and that's a good way to actually look at hardships. But also as a child, sometimes you just want to be yourself. You don't want to pretend to be anyone else, and also quite challenging to ask children to understand. But they've had to, right? I mean, even us, like we've had to understand how people do things differently and how we're different, and we just tell ourselves to try harder, which isn't really fair. I mean, especially now when there is more understanding, actually not so much understanding in school, but more awareness, hopefully, that it is going to school. Hopefully things will change.
Yeah.
And I wanted to really talk about the topic about how ADHD itself, the diagnosis, is not only gender bias, as you know, but also culturally, ethnicity based, and it's quite biased. What do you think healthcare professionals and people in the medical community need to know about how ADHD can manifest in ethnic minority, or what actually I like to call a global majority group?
I think it's a combination of different factors, right? And I think it comes sometimes, I mean, in the healthcare system, they've shown in the NHS, right, that if a woman from a different ethnic minority comes in and complains about their health, they're not taken as seriously. And there's been some real massive stats around that and how there is a bias that comes up. And it's not just when a woman complains about her health and flags that up, and many women have had childcare or pregnancy issues because of that, lost babies and all that other stuff because of the ignorance of some of these healthcare professionals and the way that they see people that don't necessarily always look like them. And I think it's just that it comes back to compassion and curiosity. And without that compassion, I think you're always going to come across really some people that are not as aware of their own behaviors. And so when it comes to the differences, I suppose, with individuals, recognizing that just because a person manifests a trait that is familiar to you, it doesn't mean that another person that has an unfamiliar trait looking in your sort of coming in your environment is not ADHD. And I think with the cultural piece, you've learned over years to mask a lot because that was the only option. It wasn't a nice to have. It was like I have to mask. I have to do it from a cultural perspective because that's how I've been raised by my parents. That's what I've been shown, that this is the way to do things. So all of that masking is going to look so different when somebody comes and presents and says, actually, these are the things that I'm having challenges with. And I think it's just that listening ear and recognizing that actually everyone's so different when it comes to that spiky profile of what ADHD looks like.
Mm-hmm.
And not just to take it at face value.
Completely, that's really wise, and definitely, like, people tend to box things into individual places, because that's how medicine work, but humans don't work that way, right? We're multi-dimensional.
Absolutely.
I know that you're also very passionate about the subject of intersectional inclusion, and you are quite the established speaker. And I've heard you speak on a panel itself and talking about, newer inclusion in the workplace. And you're also very active around the sphere of speaking on the topic of culture and race and breaking systemic barriers. And if I'm going to give you the stage now, to tell a message to go out to society, what would it be?
That's a big one. Damn, that's a big one. Okay, what would I say?
Some ideas.
I would say, and hopefully I'll articulate this in a way, right? I would say that you don't have to fit in to belong, right? Oftentimes we're looking for people that look like us, sound like us, because we want to resonate with them, and we're like, oh, we want people to be relatable. And oftentimes there's a beauty in difference. And if you get to embrace that difference, you get to add so much richness to your life. And I truly believe that people should be celebrated and not just tolerated. So the things that you're just tolerating about others because you think it's the right thing to do, And that's part of the inclusion piece. It's probably the wrong way of looking at it. There's an easier way, a way to just kind of see somebody, embrace who they are, accept them. And that might start with accepting yourself, because oftentimes when we don't accept parts of ourselves, we're projecting and we're saying we don't accept that person. And so I would say, find different pockets today and tomorrow and every day thereafter to start to celebrate others, because the more you can do that, the more you can celebrate yourself, and the more the world will just be an inclusive place. And it won't feel like hard work, because it's really not. It's easier to be kind, it's easier to be inclusive, it's easier to help others, to people to belong, by just literally accepting yourself and giving them the compassion and being curious about how you can learn from them, because everyone is a teacher as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, completely. And I know that you create this intersectional roadmap, right? Intersectional inclusion roadmap. And can you
Yeah.
tell me a little bit about that? I mean, without obviously, divulging your secrets, but what is the, takeaway from this, that people can learn to do better?
I think when people look at the topic of inclusion, they want to start with the end, the juicy bits, right? Let's implement some of these initiatives, and all initiatives are great. Often when you don't have the foundational pieces, like the right data, the understanding of what good looks like for you as an organization, and having those data points, and realizing that actually it's not about all the interventions, it's not about all the initiatives, it's about the right ones that have the right return on investment that's going to make an impact. So the 90-day intersectional inclusion roadmap is literally about that, taking you step by step for 90 days through those pieces that are key, so that whoever you choose as a partner to deliver some of these intersectional pieces, you've got the right data to make that difference. And it's long term, it isn't short term, it's a long term difference to your life, to people in the workplace's life as well. So yeah, I create this cool graphic because I do like graphics, and it's got literally the roadmap, and it's step by step, and it's got the tools, the worksheets, and everything else that goes with it to help people understand that actually, if I can get the foundational pieces right, I get to change the world, my little world or my big world, right?
That's right. And is this open to organizations mainly?
Yeah, so it would be HR professionals, because I got this within it. Within there, there's initiatives like the belonging experience, which helps people to understand what belonging looks like in the workplace, but from a practice sense, not just it's nice if we just talk about belonging from a scientific point of view. No, very hands-on, very practical. And so the experience is about immersing yourself. But that's again the nice bit, the bit where you're like able to see the end goal. We're talking about working with HR professionals specifically, ensuring that the senior leadership have the buy-in to make a difference as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. Well, it has to definitely come from top and all the way down, and it's definitely easier to get the message trickle throughout the organization if the person on top buys into the mission, right? And I have another question, but this is more around you, because it sounds to me that you've really been there for everyone. You've done so much as a mother, and you're also creating these services and working for people to train other people to do better and help those in the workplace who may not have a voice. And for yourself, after realizing that you are neurodivergent and trying hard to undo all the masking, and heal, how do you find that journey, in terms of finding ways to help yourself manage?
I find it quite easy to an extent because in between all of my discovery, I learned meditation and the beauty of mindfulness. I even like certified as a meditation teacher, and then I tried yoga, but I was like, not, the dyspraxia would not allow the flexibility to come. But I know it's not for everyone; it is for some people, but not for me. But I also like the whole shadow work and inner child work. I find it so fascinating to be like, oh, what's this, and explore and be curious, because I'm a bit like, this is interesting. Why am I reacting like this? Why is this triggering me? I find that all fascinating. So for me, that's one of the, in terms of the journey and where I'm at, it's almost like the bit that just helps me to connect and to be spiritual and not feel like I'm restricted in any way, shape or form, because it's really centering yourself and grounding yourself in who you are as well, and understanding more about who you are, not who the world tells you you are. And and yeah, it's calming. And I think one of my value systems, one of the things that I value a lot is peace. um, and so if I get to like tap into peace, I get to do emotional freedom technique, I get to do dialectical behavior therapy work and all of that great stuff. I'm giving myself some tools, and I'm healing myself so that I can sort of, like an epigenetic thing, right? I heal myself, I can heal my children, and they can heal whoever they get in contact with, and there's no longer that system of hurt people. So yeah,
Yeah,
I find it enjoyable.
that's amazing. And I've heard on the panel that you were on that you're big on self-care strategies, and probably the first person I've come across to have done a whole bunch of training in the alternative therapy, and also DBT and CBT and psychotherapy. I mean, where do you find the time to do all that and work and parent?
I find if I'm not doing something, if my brain is not active, and this probably might be my neurodivergence, right? I find myself wanting to go to sleep, and I don't want to sleep. I feel like life's too short, so it's like I've got time. My brain's engaged. I'm just so interested in all the things that life has to offer. I get to learn theatre healing if I want to. I get to learn all these great tools and um, Reiki, and I certified as a practitioner, and I'm like, this is amazing stuff. Why would I not? So I think you just kind of make time when you learn that actually this stuff actually feeds me, and then I'm able to then give from my really a cup that's overflowing. um, I want to do more of that, and that's probably where the passion lies.
Yeah, I mean, I just trying to think in terms of the day to day, because I think with people who have ADHD, the whole day can just seem like, if you don't plan it or you don't put like things in it to kind of take a break, and then the whole day can just feel like this one big hyper focus. Where do you pencil in throughout the day, like time for these kind of catch yourself and try and take a break type
Mm.
of therapies?
So I just go into my calendar and block off that time, and make sure that that time is blocked off for certain things. And I guess I've had the advantage as well as when my kids were younger, having the ability to and being a freelancer as well, having the ability to be flexible with my time as well. So that's really been helpful, knowing that actually I was freelancing for such a long time. In between, I got to like explore different avenues of healing. But yeah, for me, it's definitely around, or actually, if my 9 to 5's here, what can I do 2 hours before? What can I do an hour after? And is there anything that I can even do um, in dual? Because is there something that's going to be helpful for my own personal development as well? Like I have a mastermind I go to every maybe every 2 weeks, and that mastermind helps me with making sure that my coaching is on point and that I'm very clear. And I do it in a community called Mind Freaks, and the community is really brilliant at helping coaches to always develop and stay on point. And it's a community that you can just sort of join. So it's, I think community is probably one of the key things, making sure you've got one, because it helps you to stay grounded and helps you to go in there and out whenever you need to. And as well as looking at those spots where you can just spend 20 minutes or 30 minutes hyper focusing and getting quite a lot done. I don't know if you've seen those TikToks where people are like getting my life together in one day, and it takes like literally like, you know, doing it really quickly, and then next day flat out, burnt out. But there's that balance, right? And yeah, I think it's all about actually understanding how your brain works as well, and recognizing what's a quick win and what's going to take you longer. Like, I don't know if anyone's ever used Rescue Time, but it's literally this app you can have on your phone and on your desktop, and it lets you know how productive you're being. So I'm a geek for numbers, right? So I'll go into Rescue Time and it'll tell me you've been 89% productive today, or you've been 54, because maybe Netflix has been on in the background. But it gives me that also awareness of how long things take me as well. And obviously time blindness is one of the big factors of not necessarily getting lots of things done. So being able to do that as well, and making sure tech helps me to stay aligned with what helps me to do more stuff. So yeah, those are a few things.
Thank you. It's so helpful. You're like a fountain of knowledge with the holistic side of managing, neurodivergence. I have this one last question, and it's really based on, the topic that's speaking today about raising, your child as a neurodivergent person. And if you were to give one advice, or like any words that you would give parents who are going through this right now, maybe early on in their journey, and really not getting support anywhere, and just want to have a glimmer of hope, what would you tell them?
So there'll be a few things, but I know that community is probably a key to this. There's going to be a parent that is going through the same thing or has gone through the same thing. Whether you go to, in your workplace, there might be an employee resource group of parents that are neurodivergent, which EI does as well. But there might be a group in your local community. But regardless, it's a group of proactive parents that want to share their knowledge and wisdom. They'll tell you how to get past some of the blockers, like not having an educational plan for a child and what you can do to overcome it. They'll tell you how to embrace the confidence. When people are in community, you're going to learn so much more from each other than trying to do it by yourself. So even if, as a single mum, I say, oh yeah, I did it by myself, not necessarily. There was a community of people as well that I was able to tap into, whether that is a forum, whether that is a live event. And I remember when I first found out my own diagnosis, I created my own community because I wanted to know that information. And it was overflow of info. And so don't be afraid to go to those groups. Find your tribe of people that will be able to share some of the knowledge and wisdom, so you can stand on the shoulder of giants and learn from them as well, because you don't have to do it by yourself.
Yeah, well, that's really wise. It's completely, and also amazing that you found your community back in 2009, when it was probably quite challenging to find them, right? Yeah.
Yeah, but now it's like everywhere, right? There is so many. You can dip in and out as many as you want if you've got the time and capacity. And it's just about finding ones that align with you. So look at those values that you have and decide which ones align to your values. And then it'd be much more easier to engage and share and everything else in between.
Thank you so much, Ruth-Ellen. It's amazing speaking to you today, and really appreciate your insights in not just parenting, but also self-care and also intersectional inclusion. You're doing so much all across, and it quite remind me a bit about myself, trying to tackle this huge mission. And I'm really glad to have found you and being on this journey together.
No, thank you for the invite, and thank you so much. Your mission and everything you're doing is really inspiring, and everyone that's watching this or not watching this or replay, whatever it is, share this out. There's going to be someone that's going to even have take away one wisdom nugget from this, and be able to then have a trickle effect on everything else. So do share this great work that ADHD girls are doing.
Thank you, Ruth-Ellen.
What did you think of this episode? If it resonates with you, do share it so we can empower other neurodivergents too. We want to open up conversations for neurodivergents across all communities, especially the ones who are underrepresented. so they can get diagnosed and find the support they need in life and work. I'm Samantha Hugh, Director of ADHD Girls, and you can invite me to speak at your organization or subscribe to my upcoming bite-sized video courses on ADHD and neurodiversity via a new learning platform called Utopia. You can find a link via my link tree within my bio on Instagram and LinkedIn. Special thanks to Kiwi Tech for being such a wonderful collaborator throughout phase 1 of this campaign.